Belmont Stakes 2025, the handicapping show. We are going to take a look at all of the major race replays and get you up to date on the Belmont Stakes for 2025. Part of a big day of racing on Saturday. The Belmont Stakes will go as race number 13 in a 14 race card, and the Belmont Stakes field has been drawn. Of course, this year, the Test of Champions has been reduced to 10 furlongs at Saratoga because they're rebuilding beautiful Belmont Park. Next year, the Belmont Stakes will be at Saratoga again, and then we go back to 12 furlongs in 2027 at the new beautiful Belmont Park. Should be an exciting show tonight. We're going to get you up to date if you're new to the Triple Crown and new to handicapping the Belmont Stakes. We're going to go over the replays, go over each of the contenders, look at some of the pace ratings for some of these horses and some of the reasons why each horse can win. Tonight's show presented by RaceOracle.AI. Make sure to check out their website, learn out more about the RaceOracle.AI. But tonight's show, remember the Breeders' Cup Belmont Prospectus is already out. That came out. You can watch yesterday's show on the live stream. We went over each of the handicapping tabs for the Belmont Prospectus. And coming tomorrow, we're going to do another preview show, get you ready for the big races on Saturday. The Belmont Stakes speed figure progression video is also available online here on the channel as well. So make sure to check that out. What I like about the speed figure progression, it's one of the tools that I use the most. I try to look at how each horse is coming into each race, see which horses can improve and possibly move forward in their speed figures to try to pick a little bit of a price winner in some of these races. Now, we did see in the Kentucky Derby, moving forward in that race was Sovereignty. And then in the Preakness Stakes, Journalism had some trip trouble, and he ended up winning that Preakness Stakes coming from behind. But Gosger looked clear, had a 4-length lead with an eighth of a mile to go, and ended up winning that Preakness Stakes. So the top three runners from the Kentucky Derby are here for the Belmont Stakes. Traditionally, the Belmont Stakes been a little bit more formful, 42% all-time winners and as a favorite, and 5 of the last 10 favorites have won the Belmont Stakes. If you're playing exactas, 13 of the last 25 favorites in the Belmont Stakes have run first or second. And I agree right off the bat with Anthony. One of them is bouncing, but which one? And that's kind of, to me, that's the whole handicapping puzzle. I don't think they're going to run 1, 2, 3. One of them is probably going to regress or possibly get a bad trip. And remember, tonight's show brought to you by RaceOracle.AI. We'll tell you more about them in just a little bit. But we start off, we're going to take a look at the videos, show you some of the race replays, and then get into your questions for tonight's show on the Belmont Stakes 2025. Remember, the morning line has been set. Hill Road is 10-1, Sovereignty at 2-1, Rodriguez at 6-1, Uncaged at 30-1, Crudo, who won the Sir Barton Stakes, is 15-1, Baeza is 4-1, Journalism at 8-5, and Heart of Honor at 30-1. That is the 8-horse field for the Belmont Stakes. And before we get into your handicapping questions, we're going to take a look at the race replays. And the reason why I show these is every time I watch the race replays, I always learn something new. When you're watching the race and you have a bet on the race, you tend to watch it a little bit differently. You watch it for horses that you bet on, and you watch it more for things that you want to see happen. And when you watch these race replays, I'll try to point out who's inside, who's outside, and get more of a feel for the race. So let's go to the race replays. Then we'll take your questions on the Belmont Stakes 2025. And we start off with the race replays, and we start off with Hill Road. Hill Road, of course, He ran third in the Tampa Bay Derby. Here's the gallop out. Of course, he's in the purple, a big, strong gallop out in that Tampa Bay Derby after running third. Now in the Peter Pan Stakes, on the lead is McAfee, battling for the lead. Hill Road in the purple. He's number 4. He is coming on the outside. If you noticed in the Breeders' Cup, he was on the outside. Hill Road getting up in the final stride of the Peter Pan Stakes, winning that just a few weeks ago. Now Hill Road on the track, galloping, a big, long, leggy colt for Hill Road, going for trainer Chad Brown, and Hill Road going to be probably right around 10-1. Now here we got Sovereignty. Of course, Sovereignty ran second at Belmont. Here he is running against the lone speed in that race. That was Praetor, who ended up winning a Gulfstream Park allowance race. But this kind of puts Sovereignty on my radar. Look at him come closing late. He always closes in every race. He got second in that race in a maiden race. But right after that, he went into Churchill Downs. He went underneath the Twin Spires. This time around, he had an outside post, kind of fast faction, some good horses in this race. You had Tistastic and you had some other runners. But coming from off the pace from that outside post as a maiden was Sovereignty. He's number 10. He's wearing the Godolphin blue silks. And you see him, he's just starting to rev up. He's still well behind the leaders, but now he drifts out for the center of the track. He's in the blue. He's way on the outside. This is actually the Street Sense race, and Sovereignty in the blue. Look at that, kind of in hand late and winning, really easily winning that Street Sense race as a maiden. Now, after that, he took some time off. He did not reappear until Gulfstream Park. He missed a little bit of time after spiking a fever. Here he is in the blue. On the lead is River Thames, and then Sovereignty getting up in that final stride. Look at this, closing fast to win that late in the Fountain of Youth. Now, out of the Fountain of Youth, he ran in the Florida Derby. And what I like about this race is I think people forgot how good Tappan Street was. Tappan Street would have been my selection for the Kentucky Derby if he went to scratch the week of that race. I think Tappan Street is a good horse. And here he is. 9 is Tappan Street. He just got the jump on Sovereignty, but Sovereignty closing late at 1 1/8 miles. And if you notice, every single race, he keeps on closing. Now, here we are in the Derby. We've got Journalism striking the lead with a little over 1/8 of a mile to go. Then Sovereignty corrals him with a 1/16 of a mile to go. Baeza coming up on the outside wearing the purple and yellow. He's number on third right now. Journalism back to second. Sovereignty on the lead on a sloppy track. Baeza really closing late. He almost gets second. And Sovereignty, here is his workouts, 3 workouts since the Kentucky Derby. He worked out with Arthur's Ride, a grade 1 winner of the Whitney Stakes. Then Sovereignty, after that workout, jogging on the track at Saratoga. And then here he is, seems to be holding his weight, really muscular, kind of for an Into Mischief. Don't see a lot of the Into Mischiefs always closing like he does. Probably the best stout distance horse out of that Into Mischief line, and Sovereignty schooling in the paddock at Saratoga. So he seems ready to run a big race 5 weeks off after the Kentucky Derby. Now we've got the next contender. Here's Rodriguez. He's going to go for trainer Bob Baffert. Here he is winning a maiden race at Santa Anita. Look at the quick acceleration. Interestingly enough, the second place horse, number 5, that's Baeza. Baeza made a run at him on the turn. Rodriguez wins this race easily, and Baeza gets second. Then Rodriguez early on in the Wood. He's the lone speed. He's the one horse. He got an easy lead in the Wood Memorial. There he is early on in that race. And Rodriguez, both of his wins, front-running fashion. Now, in the stretch run of the Wood Memorial, remember, front runners did well that day. Here he is with the yellow cap. He's on the lead. Chasing him down was Grande. Now, Grande was entered in the Kentucky Derby, did not run. We haven't seen him, so we don't really know the class of that race, but it did get a big speed figure for Rodriguez in that Wood Memorial, a 101 Beyer speed figure. Now, Rodriguez entered the Kentucky Derby. He scratched the day before the race, and Rodriguez has had a 7 furlong workout at Santa Anita on May 23rd, and then he came back on May 30th with a 5 furlong workout for Bob Baffert. Now, here's Rodriguez at Saratoga earlier this week. He's kind of a leggy horse. If it comes up sloppy, which it sounds like right now, we could have rain both Friday and Saturday at Saratoga, including some afternoon showers. I do like Rodriguez in the slop. Now we go to Uncaged. Here's Uncaged at Saratoga. He's wearing the Rapoli colors. He's wearing the Mets colors there, the orange and blue. And there he is on the lead, Uncaged, for trainer Todd Pletcher. Of course, Todd Pletcher has ran over 30 horses in the Belmont Stakes, 4 winners actually, for Todd Pletcher in the Belmont Stakes. So, of course, Uncaged, going to be a little bit of a long shot. He's 30-1 in the morning line for Uncaged here, post position number 4. And Luis Saez is going to ride him for the first time. So Uncaged definitely going to be a long shot here in the Belmont Stakes. And he's out of post position number 4. He seems to break well. I don't like his Peter Pan effort. He kind of ran evenly late. He's kind of a sustained off the pace runner. I think he'll be 4 to 5 lengths off the lead in this race, with Rodriguez and Crudo most likely the pace setter. So that was Uncaged at Saratoga. Now we go to Crudo. Of course, Crudo broke his maiden at Gulfstream Park in his second lifetime start. He won by 7 lengths actually at Keeneland. That was his maiden win. He debuted at Gulfstream Park, ran 4th. And then here he is in the Sir Barton. A big effort. You know, the 84 Beyer, kind of interesting. I thought this was a more impressive race visually, but on the clock, it was a 144 flat. But he did go fast early on, kind of some average fractions. Here's Crudo's final workout at Saratoga earlier this week. So Crudo, one of 2 Todd Pletcher horses, along with Uncaged. And now we go to Baeza number 6. Here he is. He made a mid-race move in that purple and yellow. Rodriguez is on the lead. Here's Baeza number 5. He makes that nice move and kind of comes up to him on the turn. And then Rodriguez just was too strong for him that day. But Baeza ended up finishing second in this maiden race to the winner. And then now here's Baeza breaking his maiden right after he faced Rodriguez. He's on the lead. Definitely late developing foal. He's a May foal. He's by Mackenzie. Of course, Puka, the mare, has produced a Belmont winner last year with Dornock. Definitely a long leggy horse for Baeza. Here he is galloping at Churchill Downs. He trained really well leading into the Kentucky Derby. Didn't get in until a couple of days before with all of the scratches, but he's really trained well since that Santa Anita Derby, running second for Baeza. Now we've got the final 2 horses in Journalism and Heart of Honor. And of course, Baeza galloping at Saratoga. I think he's going to be maybe bet down a little bit from that 4-1 morning line. A lot of people like Baeza. Now here's Journalism. You know, when you look at the body of work, Journalism has really done a lot. He ran 3rd in his debut. He's the 3rd horse, number 1. He runs an even 3rd, but that was at 6 furlongs. Then he closes late to get up for 3rd. He's the 4 horse, and there he is running 3rd at 6 furlongs. But then they wheeled him back at Del Mar a few weeks later. He takes the lead into the stretch. Journalism at Del Mar. What I do like, he's won at Del Mar. He's won at Los Al. He's won at Santa Anita. He's won at Pimlico. He really seems to not really need to take his track anywhere. and he's really closed in every race. He's not a deep closer. I think he can be 3 to 4 lengths off the lead. Here he is in the Los Al Futurity. This is Journalism. Going to come from, he's the 5 horse, going to come from 3rd. Now, that field ended up coming back really weak, kind of a false favorite in Getaway Car, but Getaway Car had a little bit better form at that time. Journalism went straight from a maiden win into the Los Al Futurity and won that, and that started a big win streak. He had won 4 in a row going into the Santa Anita Derby. He won the Los Al Futurity. Now here he is in the San Felipe Stakes. Of course, Journalism, the big favorite in this race was Barnes at 2 to 5, and it was a small field, and a lot of people, that was the big question mark going into the Kentucky Derby. Could Journalism run well in a big field? But here he is, number 2, running down the lone speed in the favorite in Barnes in that race. So Barnes ended up running second that day. Journalism winning the San Felipe. Here's a mid-race move by Journalism. He gets boxed in. Aggressive ride from Umberto Rispoli, bumps into Clever again. Gosger looks like he's home free. He's up by 3 lengths. Here comes Sandman, the 7 horse, and then Journalism, the 2, in between horses, runs down Gosger to get up in the final stride. And then interesting, he had a big gallop out after this. Here he is, even though he had some bumping and really galloped out good, seemed to have a lot of energy in that race after the race. And Journalism, of course, winning that race in the Preakness Stakes. And let's take a look at Journalism with his ears up. Of course, he had his final workout. Journalism, a lot of energy on the track at Saratoga. If these races are taking him energy out of him, it doesn't look like it. Looks on the muscle here, prancing at Saratoga earlier this week. And here's Heart of Honor, the 8 horse in the Belmont Stakes. Of course, he ran second in the UAE Derby. Heart of Honor ran 5th in the Preakness. He did have a good late pace rating in that race. Here's Heart of Honor schooling on the track at Saratoga. So our video replays of all of the contenders here tonight for the Belmont Stakes. There's Heart of Honor. And, he's another one that's a nice looking horse, but, at this point, the grade 1 quality, a lot of good horses. And those are the race contenders for the Belmont Stakes 2025. So some interesting race replays. Of course, tonight's show brought to you by the RaceOracle.AI. Let's learn more about them.
Hey everyone, this is Tim, co-founder of Race Oracle, an AI-based wagering tool. We've looked at hundreds of thousands of races and data points to create the ultimate thoroughbred handicapping resource. For daily free picks at all North American tracks and great premium packages, check us out at RaceOracle.AI and get in on all the action today.
RaceOracle.AI bringing you the race video replays for the Belmont Stakes handicapping show. Before we get into some more data, let's take a look at some of the questions and comments. Remember, we do these shows to kind of get everybody your opinion on the race. Anthony, of course, talking about possible bounce by some of the top contenders. Of course, Baeza and Sovereignty, both with 35 days off since the Kentucky Derby. Journalism with 21 days off after winning the Belmont, of course, winning the Preakness Stakes. So be interesting to see Sovereignty, Journalism, and Baeza all getting a rematch. Not common that you get the top 3 from the Kentucky Derby all coming back for the Belmont. Now, we're getting a lot of questions about the Belmont Stakes at 1.25 miles. Of course, Saratoga only running this week. Then they go back to Aqueduct. So Silver Charm pointing out that closers are 2 for 10 at Saratoga at 1.25 miles since May of 2024. And those are for a fast track. It's looking more and more like we could get a sloppy track on Saturday. And Truth Exposed says that Baeza looks a lot like Deputy Minister. Yeah, definitely kind of a leggy, tall, black, a little bit of a Sunday Silence had the same color, a little bit different build than Baeza. Spencer says Tommy told him had a dream that the 6 horse would win the Belmont. So that would be Baeza. Truth Exposed going with show money on Crudo. And let's see some of the other comments when we look at this race. Now, here is the pace projector from Timeform US. Now, I'm projecting a little bit below par for the pace, but they're saying that Crudo is going to be on the lead ahead of Rodriguez. Crudo is number 5. Rodriguez is number 3. Baeza sitting 3rd. Uncaged maybe 4th. And then we go back to journalism. You've got Hill Road as a closer out of that one post position with the late pace. And then Heart of Honor, a little bit outclassed, kind of a deep closer. And then Sovereignty, they've got him more to the rear of the pack. I'm not so sure he needs to be that far back. I think in the Derby with that post position and the fast pace, he was further back. But I don't think Baeza and Sovereignty need to be that far back. Now, Wicked Felina says a lot of data out there says Baeza moving up, may hit a 109 Brisnet, so he may be the one. Sovereignty 2, Journalism 3, Hill Road is a possible. But Journalism, you just don't know. You know, he ran a big race in the Preakness, took the lead in the Kentucky Derby. Of course, he ran down Baeza in the Santa Anita Derby. So big efforts really every single time out for Journalism. And then Sovereignty, you know, every race, win or lose, he's always closing. He closed in that Belmont Maiden race. He closed in the Fountain of Youth when he won. He closed in the Florida Derby when he ran 2nd to Tappan Street. So again, here's the speed figure progression. This is where I take the start number, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at the top. Then on the left is the horse name. And then this shows how their Brisnet speed figure as they move forward in each start. Now, Hill Road ran over in Europe in his first 2 races. So that's why we don't have a speed figure. But he ran a pretty big number, a 101 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That was a highly rated race. He closed late at big odds in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Sovereignty ran an 88 in his debut, and then he progressed all the way up to a 103. And if you look at his pattern in 2025, he ran in the Fountain of Youth. He ran a 99. Then he regressed a little bit in the Florida Derby, a 94, going to a 1.125. And then he increased that to a 103 with the Kentucky Derby. So I think he's definitely in a good form cycle. Rodriguez with a 105 on the Brisnet scale. He's got a couple of 100 Brisnet speed figures on the Beyer scale, a maiden win. And then he also had that big speed figure the last time out in the Wood Memorial. Baeza with back-to-back triple-digit Brisnet speed figures, and then Journalism, kind of a machine, 99, 104, 108, 102, and a 107 on the Brisnet scale. Heart of Honor defeated by Journalism in the Preakness Stakes. So let's start going through the contenders. Truth Exposed says Crudo can rate a little bit. Yes, I'm not so sure he's a front runner. He's only ran a few times, so I think we still don't know his long-term running style. He was kind of forced to the lead in a key maiden race, that Multiverse, Robbie, and XY Prime race back at Gulfstream Park. Now, Hill Road, after running 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, He took some time off and ran third in the Tampa Bay Derby. Remember, that was a slow pace. Owen Almighty went wire to wire on very slow fractions. They did 114 for the 4 furlongs, a 110, and then a very slow for the mile. And then, of course, Owen Almighty just kind of sprinted home in that Tampa Bay Derby. Then he took a little bit of time off, won the Peter Pan Stakes coming from behind, and he got a 94 Beyer, which is an increase from the Tampa Bay Derby from an 84 to a 94 for Hill Road. So anybody out there, any thoughts on Hill Road? I think we know his running style. I think he's definitely going to be a closer. And Chad Brown trains. Chad Brown, of course, Saratoga native. Last year, he had Sierra Leone run as the favorite in the Belmont Stakes. Silver Charm says Sovereignty going to be no worse than 5th at worst here. And Truth Exposed says Crudo has a shot if they allow him to control the pace on the front end. Truth Exposed also thinks Crudo can run a big race and hit the board. So he's making the case pretty hard for Crudo in this race. So that's Hill Road. We go to our next contender, which is Sovereignty. Now, Sovereignty, again, you know, he's another one kind of like Journalism. If you notice, these trainers, when they have these really well-bred horses for distance races, Journalism debuted in a 6 furlong race, ran an even third, then moved forward in a second time out, and a very similar pattern for Sovereignty. He ran 4th evenly for Belmont at Saratoga, and then they wheeled him back a month later. He ran 2nd to Praetor. Then he went into a stakes race, his 3rd lifetime race, won by 5. Then he won the Fountain of Youth. And really, in his last 6 races, 5 races, he's been 1st or 2nd every race. And he's kind of cycling into a big speed figure, a 95 in the Fountain of Youth, a 92, and then a 104 in the Kentucky Derby for Sovereignty. So we'll see. Sovereignty, I think, is going to run a big race. He's got a lot of energy. He's had time to regroup from the Kentucky Derby. I'm not necessarily convinced he's a slop track horse. He won in the slop. In fact, I'd rather have it be a fast track for him on Saturday. I'm not so sure that he wants to run again on a sloppy surface. I don't think Journalism does either. I'd rather see this race rematch in the slop. I think you could get Crudo or Baeza or maybe even Rodriguez moving forward if it's a really sloppy track again. George Gomez, he's a big fan of Crudo. Joe says Sovereignty no worse than 2nd. Roger says he's got Hill Road in the Super. And George says Speed doing well yesterday and today at Saratoga. Kind of have to agree, but we still have Friday. And then if it rains on Friday, they're going to seal that track. And then if it rains Saturday, they're going to reseal it on Saturday. So even though the track's been favoring Speed, I think we have to let it all play out and see how they seal these racetracks here the next couple of days. Now, Rodriguez is number 3. His best races have been with slow paces. I do think he's going to be able to slow down the pace on Saturday. I don't see a lot of speed. The last couple of years, we've had a little bit slower pace for the 6 furlong mark. We've had faster paces for the 4 furlong mark. Now, when it was a mile and a half, they tended to go slower at that 4 furlong mark, 3 of the last 4 years. So again, we're only going 10 furlongs and not the mile and a half. So I think we're going to be a little bit more honest pace, but I think we're seeing the trend when it's a mile and a half for the pace to be a little bit slower. So George Gomez says Crudo and Rodriguez will have a better race here than Baeza. You heard it here first. Rodriguez trained by Bob Baffert. Of course, he's got some Belmont Stakes wins. Mike Smith winning the Belmont Stakes 3 times. including with Justify. So we'll see. Rodriguez was 63 days off to recover since that Wood Memorial. Now we've got Uncaged. Uncaged, one of 2 horses for Todd Pletcher. You know, what I don't like about him is he kind of ran evenly in the Peter Pan. Hill Road closed in that race, and maybe they didn't go all out. Maybe Hill Road kind of passed him, and the jockey kind of saw that he couldn't catch Hill Road. They eased him up a little bit. You know, his comeback race in April in an allowance race was a nice win. He does have a win at Saratoga for Uncaged. He's by Curlin. And of course, Curlin, the sire of journalism, and they paid some good money for him, $450,000. Louis Saez gonna ride him for the first time in Uncaged on Saturday. So I could see him, you could maybe make the case as a fourth place type horse for Uncaged. Now we do have some fans of Crudo. Again, some upside here. If you go by the buyer speed figures, he went from a 68 to an 82 to an 84. I thought the Sir Barton Stakes race was impressive visually. That was the undercard of the Preakness. So if you're new to Belmont Stakes handicapping, the Preakness Stakes was the middle road of the Triple Crown. And the 3-year-old race that day on the undercard was the Sir Barton. Crudo was actually almost 4-1 that day. He wasn't even favored, won by 7 lengths. He ran a huge race on the front end. Again, I'm not convinced he's a front runner. He went wire to wire at Keeneland at 7 furlongs. He was kind of the class of that race. He was 2-5. Then at Pimlico with John Velasquez. Now the time form pace figure have him on the lead on the pace projector for Crudo. Now remember, tonight's show brought to you by the RaceOracle.AI, and they brought you the video race replays here on the channel. Make sure to check out the website RaceOracle.AI. Now the next contender is Baeza. Of course, RaceOracle.AI, they're launching a groundbreaking handicapping tool. I went to the site. It involves a lot of data. They've analyzed over 600,000 races, and check it out. You can sign up for an account. They've got all the major tracks, Saratoga. They've got Churchill Downs, Hoosier Park, and check it out, RaceOracle.AI, tonight's sponsor of the show. Baeza, the 6-horse, of course, he is by McKinsey. He's by Puka, who had the winner last year in Dornoch. Of course, Dornoch had that kind of regressed in the Kentucky Derby last year and then came back and won the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, kind of as a price horse, almost 15, 16, 17-1. Baeza did lose to journalism in the Santa Anita Derby. He did lose to Rodriguez in a maiden race, but he did have one race as a 2-year-old. That was on the turf, and I think that was a good foundation race for Baeza. Bad Beat Billy says Rodriguez won't be able to outrun this field. And Billy Ho says a sealed track in favor of the front runners. He'll still back Sovereignty all the way. He likes Crudo to possibly get loose and maybe shake clear. I'm not sure if that's on a sloppy track or on a dry track. Again, it looks like we're going to have rain on Saturday, and we'll probably incorporate some sloppy track pedigree breeding into our handicapping. And Wicked Felina, you know, journalism, huge race in the Preakness, big race in the Derby, took the lead and then lost to Sovereignty late at 1.25 miles. Of course, the Preakness is a little bit less than 1.25 miles, 1 mile and 3/16. And so Baeza, I think, going to be probably right around 7-2, 4-1. His morning line is 4-1, but I think a lot of handicappers are picking Baeza to run a big race. Journalism, the morning line favorite. Now, this surprised me. I was shocked that journalism was 8-5 in the morning line, Sovereignty at 2-1, but journalism was favored in the Kentucky Derby. He was favored in the Santa Anita Derby. He was favored in the Preakness Stakes at even money. We've got a small field. He beat Baeza in the Santa Anita Derby. Anybody have any thoughts on Journalism being favored? Do you think in doubles or in pick threes? Who do you think will be favored in the Acorn double with Sovereignty and Journalism? Do you think it'll be Sovereignty or Journalism, or which of those two will get played heavier in the daily doubles? Remember, we've got a Woody Stevens Belmont Daily Double, an Epsom Derby Belmont Double. We've got a Met Mile Derby Belmont Double. So lots of opportunities to play some doubles going into the Belmont Stakes. Now, Felina says Sovereignty been biting out, irritable from possibly not racing in 5 weeks, irritable on the track. He might bump some horses. So yeah, Sovereignty, you know, he's kind of a powerhouse type horse. Those Into Mischiefs are kind of blocky. They are high strung. They have a lot of energy. A lot of them have ran their best races at 1 1/8. So I think Sovereignty, probably one of the better 1 1/4 type horses for Into Mischief. So there's Sovereignty and Journalism. Heart of Honor, of course, he's by Honor AP, who ran in the Kentucky Derby. He lost to Authentic when they ran the Derby in September. Ran 9th by 13 lengths in the Preakness, and he ran 2nd in the UAE Derby. He did lose to Golden Vekoma. Golden Vekoma won a race, won actually 3 races in a row. Then he got hurt. He did not run in the UAE Derby, but I don't even think a horse like Golden Vekoma would probably be even favored in a race like the Bluegrass. So I think Heart of Honor probably definitely overall less class than horses like Baeza, Journalism, Sovereignty, and I'm even going to include a horse like Crudo, who I think has some upside in a race like this. So some of the late pace ratings: Heart of Honor with a big late pace rating in the Preakness, a 109, Journalism, a 105, Hill Road, a 101 in the Peter Pan. Now, according to Brisnet, the pace ratings in the Derby were not that good. Sovereignty with a 92 late pace rating in the Derby, and Journalism with an 88 in the Kentucky Derby. And the late pace rating measures a rating from the 6 furlong call to the end of the race. So basically, it's almost a half a mile in the Kentucky Derby from the 6 furlong mark all the way to 1.25 miles. So Baeza probably going to get some play. We'll take some more of your handicapping questions after we hear more.
Hey everyone, this is Tim, co-founder of RaceOracle, an AI-based wagering tool. We've looked at hundreds of thousands of races and data points to create the ultimate thoroughbred handicapping resource. For daily free picks at all North American tracks and great premium packages, check us out at RaceOracle.AI and get in on all the action today.
People have opinions. Horses are going to have the facts on Saturday. Baeza, will he win the Belmont Stakes? And Spencer says, just like D. Wayne Lucas says, we'll find out on Saturday. Of course, post position, not as much of a factor for the Kentucky, for the Belmont Stakes, like the Kentucky Derby. We don't have any curse of post position 17 or anything like that. We've got Hill Road, Heart of Honor in post position 8, Journalism. You know, I don't think anybody really helped. I think Hill Road being a closer, he was going to probably drop back early. Sovereignty's a closer, so he's probably going to drop back early. I think a good post position for Crudo and Baeza. Baeza will be inside of Journalism, and he'll probably be outside of Crudo if Crudo wants to go to the lead in the first half mile. So Tom Kopp says Journalism showed in the Preakness Stakes a big race, overcoming trouble, bumping, and then running down Gosger as kind of the loose horse on the lead. Wicked Felina says journalism will have the edge. Baeza next. Some big cards Friday and Saturday by the NYRA. Of course, we got the Met Mile. We got the Woody Stevens. Big news today out of the Woody Stevens. Colloquial came up lame on the track, so he has been scratched from the Woody Stevens. Colloquial would have been one of the top 2 favorites in that Woody Stevens. Of course, that's going to be a 7-furlong race on the card on Saturday. And then with him being scratched, you've got Citizen Bull, who ran in the Kentucky Derby. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He won the Robert Lewis. He's going to be a factor in that race. You've got Gunmetal for Brad Cox. You've got Patch Adams, who ran a couple of big races at Churchill Downs. He won one last November, and then he won on the race after the Derby was won by Patch Adams as well. So some interesting runners in that Woody Stevens. Now, we've got, remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you're watching the channel right now, the best way to support the channel, smash that like button. That gets me more into the algorithms, shows you that you're supporting the channel. Smash that like button if you can. And, of course, the Belmont Stakes Prospectus is out, and you can look at that, look at some of the handicapping data. Of course, tomorrow we've got the Acorn Stakes. You've got the Acorn Belmont Double. There is a 2-day pick 6, all dirt, 20 cents. And it starts tomorrow on the dirt with the Bed of Roses Stakes. And then it's going to end on Saturday. And what I like about it is it's all dirt, and it's going to be 6 races, and it's a 20-cent bet. So make sure to check that out. Chance to, I usually don't play the pick 6 at $1, but with a 20-cent bet, and it's got the Met Mile in it. It's got the Woody Stevens, and it closes with the Belmont Stakes. So that's something to take a look at. So we're going to come back tomorrow night. We're going to take a look at some of the undercard races. We'll look at the Woody Stevens. We'll look at the Belmont Stakes. We'll look at the Met Mile. Get you ready for Saturday. See if the rain has come. And again, tonight's show, make sure to check out the website, RaceOracle.AI, launching a groundbreaking AI handicapping tool for horse racing fans. And check out their website. We've got Saratoga, and you can use AI and some of the data from previous races to find some winners on the card on Saturday from Saratoga. Now, we're going to go into tomorrow night. We'll be back at 5:30 again after the card at Saratoga. We'll take a look at some of the Saturday races. And remember, as D. Wayne Lucas always says, people have opinions, horses have the facts.